This video is for those of you who are already live with your inventory software and have just hired Brandow Consulting to help you take a second look and improve the way that you're using the software and get the most out of it. You've just hired Brandow Consulting and scheduled your first appointment with Brandow Consulting. What happens next? Who should you invite to the appointment? What's the agenda for the appointment? The agenda for the appointment could be a number of things. If there hasn't been a discovery interview, we definitely want to know a little bit more about you so we can be a better help. We focus on two things: the way the software is set up and the way it is used. So high on our list is seeing your software, seeing how it's set up. So oftentimes we'll do what we call a file analysis. Basically, this is the time for you to show us your screen, log into your inventory software, and show us how it's set up. From there, we'll kick around and take a look at the way your parts are set up, your locations are set up, your units of measure are set up, your accounts are set up. We want to look at the most common areas for problems. And oftentimes, we can mix the discovery interview and the file analysis and do both of those together. We take scrupulous notes, and our goal is to get a high-level understanding of who you are and what you do, discuss the goals that you want to accomplish, any pain points that you want solved, and of course look for any red flags with how the file is set up. A discovery interview and a file analysis could typically take about an hour and a half. You definitely don't need a large crowd to be productive with the discovery interview and the file analysis. Step 3, the next thing on the list, if we still have time after the discovery interview and the file analysis, we could progress to what I call documenting a desired overall workflow. Returning to the previous principle, in order to have a successful experience with your inventory software, it needs to be set up right and it needs to be used right. So documenting a desired overall workflow is a time to give our first stab at how we think you should be using the inventory software. The best approach we've found is, instead of learning how you're currently using the software, we like to hear what you're currently doing, how you're currently operating physically. Then from there, we document and give our first knee-jerk reaction to how we think you should be recording those activities or planning those activities in your inventory software. How we think you should have your inventory software set up as well. So we create a Google document called a desired overall workflow. And it usually follows this workflow: sales order creation, work order creation, purchase order creation, transfer order creation, transfer order fulfillment, purchase order fulfillment, work order fulfillment, sales order fulfillment. Now, obviously, if you're not doing manufacturing, we take out the work orders. And if you don't have more than one warehouse, we take out the transfer orders. So we just write down a basic workflow of how we think you should be creating sales orders, creating purchase orders, fulfilling purchase orders, fulfilling sales orders. And that often sparks a lot of good discussion. And you have an opportunity to point out where you're having problems and where you would like to see solutions. This desired overall workflow document is a living, breathing thing that we're going to constantly update as we get to know you better and as you learn more about the software. We'll make best practice decisions in regards to your company and the software you're using and document those decisions in this desired overall workflow document. This is a good time to ask ourselves who should be responsible for this specific step in the workflow, and add their name to that step or add that department to that step in the overall workflow document. We've found that this is a fun approach. When we react to what you're telling us that you're doing in the real life, and we say, well, if that's what you're doing in the real life, we'll translate this to the software, and we think this is how you should be using the software to record or plan your physical real life activities. And you may say, great, that's the way we're doing it now. We'll say, all right, we're both on the same page. Let's move on to the next step in the workflow. And then we may make a recommendation that says, we think you should be using the software like this. And you'll scratch your chin and say, oh, that's interesting. We're not doing it this way. why do you think we should do it that way? Or why do you think that is the most likely way to do it? And that's where the valuable conversation comes in. And we can share ideas and you can learn from our perspective. By now, we're probably on our third appointment around there. And we're starting to solve problems. We're starting to have valuable conversation. We may have even implemented some of the recommendations or ideas, or maybe you had fires to put out that were top priority and we needed to just address those fires and put those fires out. Regardless, we're to the point now that we should have a sandbox environment that we're working in. You should have received a list of instructions, step-by-step instructions on how to create a sandbox environment for your inventory software. We can't try new things, we can't test new things, we can't train people on new processes or procedures unless we have a sandbox environment to work on. So it's very important that either with our help or without our help, you set up a sandbox environment. And basically what a sandbox environment is, it's a copy of your live file or your live account connected to a copy of your live QuickBooks account or QuickBooks file. So we can see the transactions flow through as well. So be sure to work towards setting up that sandbox environment. Now we're ready to document individual procedures. These can be used as training documents. These documents are created by us on the fly while we're on the phone with you, taking screenshots and writing down step-by-step instructions on how a particular user should use the inventory software that we're using. And then you can use those procedural documents as training material to train your people on the best way to use the software that we collaboratively decided together. Once again, we're making best practice decisions and documenting those decisions. So if your file's set up right and you're using it right, you're going to have a successful experience with your inventory software. So if you implemented your software on your own and you're having problems, or let's say your key people have left the company, they're no longer there for whatever reason, and you need a second look at your implementation, you need a second look at the way you're using software. But set up right and used right, you'll have success. And that's how we get to that point where it's set up right and used right. Comment below or give us a call, go to our website, click on the link, fill out a contact form if you have more questions. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel and click like if this was helpful.